Alright, so if I'd be able to go back in time and talk to my younger self, I probably would have a lot to say when it comes to building muscle, going to the gym, and just building an overall solid fitness routine. Because the reality is, I probably wasted like years, I'm talking years, focusing and just chasing the wrong things. So in this video, I'm gonna break down these 7 things I wish I knew when I started lifting that could save you potentially years of frustration and at the very least help you get to your dream physique in a more efficient manner, and if not, in a more enjoyable way. So with that said, let's jump right into it. It's gonna be probably the most straightforward video I make. So first off, I'm gonna start with a big controversial one, and that is you're probably not training hard enough. Let me explain. Now, first off, this is considering that you already have good form on your exercises. So, because safety is always going to be top priority. So first, learn how to do the movement. But with that in consideration, you probably already understand that you need to be training at least 2 reps shy-ish of failure if you want to have a productive set from a muscle growth standpoint. However, the big issue here is that vast majority of people tend to underestimate their RIR projections. Meaning, when they say 2 reps shy failure, in reality, they're probably closer to like 4, 5, maybe even 10 plus reps shy failure. That's kind of overdoing it. But the point is, people don't really understand what training 1 to 2 reps shy failure actually looks like. So my solution is actually super simple. And that is, you need to occasionally train all the way to failure, ideally on every single movement pattern. Now, of course, there are better and worse exercises to be training all the way to failure. Like, I wouldn't recommend you do it on, let's say, barbell squats. But if in your program you do barbell squats as well as something like a machine hack squat, only go all the way to failure on at least 1 set on the hack squat and not necessarily the barbell squat. Because the hack squat and the barbell squats essentially train the same movement pattern, the idea is that feeling of you training to failure on the hack squat should probably help you carry over your RIR estimates on the barbell squat. And if you're not really sure if you're training to failure or not, what you can do is choose an exercise that's pretty safe to do. First set, take it to like RIR 1, RIR 2. Note down how much weight and how many reps you did. But then for that second set, take it all the way to failure and see, was your set number 1 actually RIR 1 or RIR 2? That's another way to also get a good understanding of whether you're actually training to failure or not. Give this a try, stay safe, but moving on to number 2. The second thing I wish I knew is training longer does not equal training better. Now, I used to think that if your workouts took more time and more volume, then that should be better for muscle growth. However, it's not necessarily true. Like all things, there is a bell-shaped curve on the benefit of time and more volume to your gains. Meaning there's probably an optimal amount of time and volume that you should be doing to maximize muscle growth. However, any more than that, it starts actually having more of a negative impact rather than a positive one. But the main thing here is that your workout time shouldn't be a parameter that you focus on when you're deciding whether your workouts are good or not. What matters a whole lot more is how hard you're actually pushing on each set. Because after all, if your workout's super long and you're super fatigued and you're just doing more volume and not really training close to failure, well, you're just accumulating junk volume for no apparent benefit. And the scientific rationale behind this is the last 5 reps on a set to failure are going to be the most productive for muscle growth, because that is where the muscle experiences the most mechanical attention, which is essentially, think of it as the prime stimulus that allows your body to recognize, okay, we should be building some muscle. Thus, a bunch of low effort / fatigued sets that generally happen when your workouts are super long is pretty much going to be pointless if your goal is to maximize muscle growth. This lesson can pretty much be summed up as train harder, not longer. And that probably means lowering the amount of sets you're doing per exercise, and perhaps even taking a couple exercises out of your workouts that are kind of redundant. Admittedly, here is where having an optimized workout program is probably going to be very beneficial, like the ones that my clients in my one-on-one fitness coaching program get. So if you're curious or if you're interested about that, definitely apply in the link down below. Here's some transformations on screen right now. Getting back to topic number 3. Now, the third thing I wish I knew is you don't learn good form overnight. Now, it might be a little hyperbolic here, but it probably takes you like hundreds, if not thousands of reps to actually truly master an exercise. So if your form isn't perfect your first day, week, month, potentially even year, I wouldn't necessarily say that is a terrible thing. All right, maybe you should probably have good form by the 1 year mark. But the truth here is you need to spend dedicated time and effort to actually learning a movement. You shouldn't be just loading weight off the bat and like, okay, second time I bench press ever, I think my form is like decent, it's better than the first time, well, I should start just packing the weight on. No. This is why there's so many injuries from weightlifting, and why it's kind of accepted to eventually get an injury in your workout career, which in my opinion is kind of ridiculous. Just people aren't spending enough time learning good form. So my recommendation is this. For compound movements, your first few weeks should just entirely definitely be spent on learning good form. You know, choose a somewhat a little bit challenging weight, but nothing crazy, and just see if your form improves week after week. First, it might be having the bar actually bounce in your hands on a barbell bench press. Then it might be next week, keeping your shoulder blades depressed so that your shoulder blades stabilize when you're benching. And then the third week might be about breath work or keeping your wrists straight when you're bench pressing. And even if you're a few years into your lifting career, don't just automatically think, oh, I know everything I need to know about having good form on every single exercise I do in my program. If you don't believe me, then just spend like 10 minutes watching my shorts. I guarantee you'll probably learn something about having good form on exercise that you didn't realize. But then the question becomes, well, when do I know that my form is good enough to actually start adding more weight and focusing on that progressive overload? In my opinion, there's like a threshold you need to meet on every single exercise before you can load the weight heavier. So here's my 3-step criteria. Number 1, it's pain-free. The movement should not hurt when you do it. It shouldn't be any sharp pain, not to be confused with, you know, your muscle working. Tip number 2, which I think would drastically help, is record yourself and make sure that your form is like similar enough to a trusted professional. You can use my videos or someone else's videos that you trust and know what they're talking about. But please don't just choose like the biggest guy you see on YouTube, because sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing everything correctly. Also, another caveat with that, ideally watch a video that's somewhat recent. It shouldn't be some like Arnold Schwarzenegger clip from 1970s pumping iron. I know it looks cool, but you're probably better off watching something more recent. Also, real quick, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It's the best way to support me, and it's completely free. Back to the video. And the third thing is you have to be fully in control of the movement at all times. Not only on the concentric part, which on a bench press is pushing outwards, but on the eccentric as well, meaning on the way down. You shouldn't be dive bombing on these exercises. You want to be in control of that eccentric phase. Only at that point will I say you can start focusing on progressive overload, but moving forward, always have an open mind on it. The off chance that maybe you can be performing that movement better. And of course, listen to your body. If you're getting hurt, sharp pain, soreness, shoulder pain, joint pain afterwards, might be a sign that maybe you're doing something wrong. Now, considering that most of you guys came from my shorts, you already probably know this, but my channel is pretty much dedicated to teaching you good form in a short form kind of manner that's bite-sized. So slowly as you watch my videos, you probably can help improve your form overall. It's kind of like taking a daily Flintstone vitamin. Consume a little bit each day and you might be in a better place. You probably will be in a better place. Now, the fourth thing I wish I knew is supplements are not all that important, so stop obsessing over them. And remember, this is coming from someone who has a supplement sponsorship myself. But the honest truth is that you don't necessarily need a supplement. Not saying they can't come in handy, and not saying that if your goal is to maximize muscle growth or certain goals that you shouldn't take supplements, because there are supplements that definitely work. But in my humble opinion, there shouldn't be a reliance on supplementation. Take me for example. I went 8.5 years without ever taking creatine. I only started taking it for that video, and lo and behold, I actually saw improvements in strength. So, again, creatine did help me get stronger and probably will help the majority of you guys get stronger. I still technically never really needed it and probably would have been completely fine going the rest of my life without ever taking it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that supplements probably account for like 5 to 10% of your overall physique. So protein powder, if you tend to struggle getting protein in, could be a good option. And then creatine and caffeine for exercise performance is also probably a good option. But if you're not already consistently training, you understand how to train to failure, you know how to perform movements properly, so with good form, unless you've got all that figured out, you probably shouldn't even be thinking about supplements. But I know for a lot of you guys, if you are already lifting consistently, then a supplement company I personally recommend is the one I've been taking for a very long time, and that is MyProtein. They've been around for decades at this point. They taste good. They're relatively affordable, probably the best value supplement brand in my opinion, meaning their stuff is definitely not overpriced, especially if you're using my code, which can get you anywhere from 40 to 51% off. So if you're interested, you can check that down below. But at the end of the day, if you don't got your sleep, lifting routine, and diet down, you probably should be focusing on that before supplements. Now, the fifth thing I wish I knew is you do not need to bulk in order to build muscle. Probably the second most controversial one, but I think a lot of people will love to say, oh, you need to bulk in order to build muscle because of an overfixation on body weight being the key to everything, bulking generally being more fun than cutting, eating more generally being more fun than eating less. But the reality is you can in fact build muscle being at maintenance or even a small deficit, especially if you're newer in the gym or getting back into training. Now, yes, you will likely build more muscle if you were actually in a calorie surplus and quote unquote bulking, ideally lean bulking, but it is not a mandatory thing for those that are trying to lose body fat, or they just like the idea of maintaining a very lean physique, which I don't really think there's anything wrong with that if you have a naturally low body fat set point, you're not ferociously hungry all the time, and your mental health is still good, which there are people out there that can in fact maintain roughly 10 to 12% body fat without having these mental issues, myself included. And I just think, considering that most people in the modern world would probably benefit more from trying to get leaner, that is trying to lower their body fat percentage, bulking in many ways, in my opinion, and being in a calorie surplus for a long period of time, it's kind of like taking one step forward for muscle building, but then 2 steps back from a fat loss standpoint. The 6th thing I wish I knew is that protein and calories is not the only thing you should be focusing on when it comes to your diet. Early on, I used to think that hitting my protein goal and making sure I'm not overeating calories were the 2 things I really needed to focus on in order to be quote unquote healthy. But while macronutrients such as protein and your total caloric intake are important things for your health, they don't tell you anything about your micronutrients. Now, micronutrients are essentially vitamins and minerals, the things that don't impact calories. Now, I can't really explain why, but when I know I'm getting my fruits, veggies, and fiber in, and I know that I'm providing my body the resources necessary to operate at its best, I feel like it makes a qualitative difference on my life, including going to the gym. Energy-wise, I'm just less sluggish, I get sick less. If I get a terrible night's sleep, I'm still like somewhat okay. I just overall feel a little bit more strong and resilient when I'm consuming a variety of different foods and getting my micronutrients in. Again, I'm literally sponsored by a supplement company, but please don't be that guy that's just downing protein shakes all day and not eating an actual well-balanced meal. 1 or 2 scoops of protein powder a day on top of a balanced diet is completely okay though. The next thing I wish I knew about was the clothing brand Able, because they make super high quality gym wear for men. Just kidding, but if you guys want high quality gym clothes for a pretty affordable price, that is not what everyone else is wearing. Definitely check out Able and consider using code PATH for 10% off at checkout. They had a recent drop, but I'm here in Thailand right now, so I don't have their new clothes, but you can check the website. They carry men's and women's, and the recent drops have been hitting, man. But anyways, back to the actual lesson. And the 7th and last thing I wish I knew when I started lifting is consistency beats perfection. Like, actually. If there's one thing over the long term that will have the biggest impact on you getting to your goals, whether it be fitness goals or honestly anything else, it's that there's nothing more important than being consistent. You can literally have not the best workout plan, not the best work ethic, not the best diet, not the best recovery, not the best anything, but if you could show up every day, you train hard enough, you try to eat a relatively clean diet, you try to learn more things about fitness and nutrition, you try to enjoy your workout, with enough time, you probably will still make serious progress to your fitness goals. Like, even though you're mediocre at everything, which if you're watching this video, you're definitely not mediocre, you're well above. If you could simply put in the work for long enough, you'd probably be surprised at the results you'd see. And that's why at the end of the day, I don't recommend that you aim for perfection, but instead, focus on what is sustainable for you in the long term. If you can't get yourself to train 6 days per week, well, train less than that. If you hate just eating plain chicken, broccoli, and rice, well, put some sauce in it. It's not the biggest deal. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn more about fitness, but what I am saying is don't get analysis paralysis when trying to decide when you should start your fitness goals. Honestly, you should just commit today and jump right into it. If I knew all of this when I first started, I probably would save like 2 to 3 years off my fitness progress, but it's never too late. And I hope you guys can avoid these mistakes and now have an overall more efficient and enjoyable time pursuing your fitness goals. Consider using code PATH at Able if you want an extra 10% off. The support will also be much appreciated. Hit subscribe to Level Up Your Physique, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.